Let me get a quick soundbite. All right, so I know this bill is going to go through, right? Congratulations on the bill going through. So, what's your thought about the next step? What's the next steps after this? The next.
Well, so this was just the vote by the Transportation Committee to advance the bill. We still need the full council to vote tomorrow, Thursday, at the stated meeting. So our union, the Taxi Workers Alliance, we're having a rally and a press conference at 11:30, Broadway and Murray, tomorrow, Thursday, January 29th. In terms of the next steps, right? And this is a massive one. I mean, deactivations are like a sword on the neck of over 100,000 Uber Lyft drivers in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a massive issue.
Yeah.
I think, there's so many issues. I think right now we have a generational opportunity to really put driving, to really elevate this profession and put drivers on a pathway to a middle class life. We need a prevailing wage standard, so drivers can earn a livable income and an income that really reflects the fact that they work overtime every day. There's no holiday pay, no paid time off, no hazard pay, a prevailing wage that honors the expenses as well as the dangers that are unique to this job. We need some sort of a guarantee for that income. We need a retirement plan. We need to address the insurance crisis. As you know, the biggest insurance company is about to go, is insolvent. It could go bankrupt. At 60,000 plus drivers who have insurance policies there that could be at risk. And so we need to organize a co-op of all the drivers so that the drivers can collectively own their own insurance company, take out the fat of private profit. If there's any revenue left over, it should go back to the drivers. And of course, we need a sound policy on the impact not only of autonomous vehicles, but on AI. This industry has already, drivers have already been subject to AI, right? Because for Uber and Lyft, who dominate the number of trips that are dispatched every day, about 80% plus of the close to 1 million trips that are dispatched every day are by Uber and Lyft. And that algorithm uses AI. At the click of a button, they can take your job away. The algorithm, is used to determine who gets a fare, what kind of a fare they get, and fundamentally, we have to change, how much these companies are exploiting on each fare. The average is maybe around 40% on every trip goes to the companies. When they first came into the industry, they claimed that they'd only take around 20%, even 15%. On some trips, they could take as much as 70%, but it's the drivers that do the labor, provide the service, pay the expenses, and take the risks. And so we need a pay model that addresses any discriminatory practices, through AI of the algorithm, and really gets the lion's share of the fare to the drivers whose labor allows that fare in the first place. So
one question is, do you think that the app should be paying for every year these guys renew their inspections and registration? Do you think the app should be paying that instead of the drivers? Should that be the route going forward?
Yeah, the way the city addresses that now is in the minimum pay rules. The per mile and per minute rate. It's that those rates are set taking drivers' expenses into consideration. I know what you're saying is if the companies pay the expenses outright.
Yeah.
The city should look at that, absolutely.
And another thing is about Waymo. What do you think about the Waymo controversy that they might enter the city? I know Hochul's for it. Madani, mostly, you guys are against it. What's your game plan about that? Will it be you trying to lobby a bill to make sure they don't come in the city, or is it
but Hochul is for far she has said is a limited pilot program outside of the city. Now that is not satisfactory to us because that it's just a matter of time. Uber and Lyft also started upstate. Now they did it illegally, right?
Yeah.
But that's where they started. And of course, why would any company be if they're allowed to enter upstate? Why would any company be satisfied with not having access to the city where the bulk of the fares are, right?
Yeah.
New York City drivers complete more trips than most other major cities across the country combined. And so we don't like the signs of that, but I tell you that a bill that's been being sponsored by the transportation chair in the Senate, Senator Cooney and Assemblyman Hoylman are even more concerning to us. They pretty much would give Waymo and any of these companies just like a red carpet. Look, the city's not ready, the state's not ready. If the governor is rightly concerned about drivers in the city losing their livelihoods, why would we not be concerned about our brothers and sisters upstate losing their livelihood? Everyone's got to eat. All drivers, whether you live in Buffalo or you're in New York City, should have the same right to a dignified life. And autonomous vehicles at the heart of them are about replacing labor. They're not even properly tested. There is no evidence that they're going to be any safer than human operated vehicles. And there's a real impact on the environment. And at the end of the day, it's a degradation of jobs, particularly for the working class. So of course we're going to be fighting this. We call on all people of good conscience to come and join our fight.
And one more thing, I know you gotta go. What is your thoughts about do you think that the app should be properly more regulated? Because they said Madani said two weeks ago at Workers Justice Project headquarters that him and Levine and Sue's gonna be fighting the apps. They sue MotoClick. It's like a robotic company that uses the platforms of DoorDash and Uber. Do you think that the app should be regulated, properly regulated in the city?
Yeah, we in our sector, we do have regulations, right? And our union, TWA has fought for the minimum pay, which includes covering drivers for their wait time. We've also won unemployment at the state level where Uber Lyft drivers were found to be employees of the apps. And so, for example, during COVID, as independent contractors, they would have received less than $180 a week in unemployment. But because of our legal victory, they were classified as employees for state unemployment purposes. Drivers were receiving over $500 a week. It was like a $1,200 a month difference, which was that's life changing, right, for working people. I see it in your eyes. The drivers, of course, at workers' comp through the big settlement which that the Attorney General had gotten with Uber and Lyft over wage theft for $328 million. That investigation was a result of a complaint filed by the Taxi Workers Alliance attorneys regarding this wage theft. The AG used that settlement to also leverage to win paid sick leave for drivers. And so we've had to piecemeal our way right into rights. The problem here, though, is every time we take a step forward, there's an attack that we have to face, to the lockouts from the companies.
Yeah.
And the TLC was so slow to act. And the mayor at the time, Eric Adams, stood with the companies, even though they were engaged in an incredibly painful practice of locking you off the app, unexpectedly, a couple hours at a time. There was, no rhyme or rhythm. Drivers were losing tens of thousands of dollars of income by the end of the year. It's really abusive and very painful and damaging. And the city really dragged its feet to do anything. TWA is the one that petitioned the Taxi and Limousine Commission to finally act on rulemaking. So I think that with the new era, we have an opportunity here, generational opportunity, to not be under constant attack, to give us that breathing room so we can be creative. We can catch up to all the regulations that are still needed, on these billionaire companies, so every driver can have a prevailing wage, so that's above minimum wage, at a livable income that honors their expenses, hours, and dangers on the job, some sort of a trips guarantee, right? Because it doesn't matter how much you're paid on every trip if you don't have enough trips.
Yeah.
Really stabilizing this job. Again, retirement, they're addressing a lot of these issues where the companies, they just like add on these junk fees out of nowhere. We got to close up those loopholes. Again, they take the lion's share of the fare, which means driver incomes get stuck. We're supposed to have a floor so you don't go below minimum wage and into poverty, but we shouldn't have a ceiling. If the companies are charging more, drivers should be allowed to earn more. And every study has shown that, especially since 2019, the companies have been charging more to the public, but the rate that the driver income has gone up has not kept up with that same pace. So yeah, we got to fix all these loopholes and really give drivers the life that they deserve.
So you think it should be a commission form? I think I said many times that you should be part of, like, the chair, Lydia Galapa, working towards the project. Should it be a commission formed by the mayor's office, like you, the chair, and Lydia is the chair, and then you guys get to appoint people y'all want to appoint, like I got to split, and then the mayor's office get to split, to where you get to hold the apps accountable, where you give recommendations for sanctions, fines, and summonses, to the point that we get them out of the city. Should that be the route going forward? What do you think about that?
I think we have commissions, right? And definitely, I think the TLC has to be reoriented. Remember when the TLC was first started? Yeah. They're regulating the fares, but there's a lot more control on the streets for the drivers and small companies. Now, over the last 10 plus years, you've got these billionaire corporations that set the rates, discipline the drivers. That's why we're here fighting for this bill to stop unfair deactivations, because they discipline the drivers abusively and unjustly. But they really control the economics in this industry and the functions of this industry on the streets, right? So TLC needs to catch up to that. TLC is modeled to assume that drivers control those things. So the police force is all about pulling drivers over. The rule books are primarily about the drivers. We need to change that. We need to have the enforcement that's focused more on like illegal pickups. So drivers that are licensed, their trips are not poached away, right? And the public is also protected because TLC trips would be insured. TLC also needs to have more staffing around like research and data collection, as well as attorneys that drivers can go to file complaints. Members come to us when their deposit is withheld by a company, when they've been overcharged on a lease, right? If they've been underpaid on a trip. We need to be able to go to enough staffing at the TLC that can work on these issues quickly and send the message to the corporations that the drivers are protected. So we need that type of a reorganization internally to the TLC. I think that the role that like Taxi Workers Alliance or my brothers and sisters at even LDU, not to speak for them, because they know their industry, but I believe the role that we have to play is to organize the drivers. I'm a street fighter. We're unionists. You can have power in this society, in our American society, through money or through the people. We don't have the money, but we've got the people, the drivers. And, by organizing the drivers, acting as a collective voice. Remember, by the time we go publicly with our demands and our proposals, our policies, we have vetted them through our membership meetings, which sometimes have up to 800 drivers on a Zoom meeting, right? Yeah. We also have meetings in person. So we together, as brothers and sisters of the union, in the Taxi Workers Alliance, we come up with our policies, we vet our policies, we work with our attorneys, with researchers, with others, with expertise, and then we go publicly with one voice to fight for that issue. I still believe there is absolutely nothing, not a commission or anything else that can replace the power of a strong, unified union. That's what the drivers have to focus on. That's the institution that will last for generations for the drivers.
Can you like clear the air about this Intro 1000? I think this got passed like 4 days ago with what is it? Uber, the FAG is allowed to park in commercial base zones.
Mm-hmm.
That's your bill, or that's IDG's bill?
Well, actually it was Fernando Mateo's bill.
Oh.
And I think that, but then IDG kind of took it over, if that's what I saw at the city council hearing, because, he spoke first and what have you. My problem with what IDG did is, my understanding is, they pretty much lobbied to say that the bill should only cover FHV drivers. And now, what they rightly at the hearing said, look, this bill is necessary because drivers have serious health issues, right? Like, parking for drivers is a public health issue. And, why would IDG think that yellow cab drivers don't have health issues? Does IDG think yellow cab drivers are less human, than FHV drivers? Do they not know all drivers are brothers and sisters? If you acknowledge that an issue is about public health for drivers, then are you somehow saying that a yellow cab driver, that a driver based on the color of their vehicle should not have the same, protections for public health? I mean, that's terrible. You're not a unionist, which, they're not, because they take money from the companies, but that's a terrible position for anybody to be claiming, in the industry, whether they're unionists or they're working for the companies, like IDG does.
So IDG, they backed by Uber themselves. Is that true? They backed by Uber. They pay by the apps, or
yes, Uber.
So
and
do you think that it was the only interest but benefiting Uber instead of only Uber itself, instead of like you guys?
Yeah, that's their role. IDG's role is to be the driver face of Uber's interests.
So going forward, so you talk about the human. So what do you think about people going to say, I know this bill's going to go through tomorrow. There are people. What do you think about the bathroom situation? What do you think about that? Because we're all human. We don't know what we drink. We don't know people's health.
We supported the bill.
Yeah.
We came out. We testified for the bill, but we said the bill should do two things. Number one, it should recognize that it's for vehicles that are human operated, right? TLC, that the bill should really identify the right to TLC drivers, not just the vehicle. I know it's parking related bill, but it should be about, that it's a human operated vehicle. We got to put that in now as, safety nets for us, given the era of AVs that we're talking about. Secondly, that it should be for all TLC vehicles, not just for hire vehicles, also yellow cabs. Because if a FHV driver has a right to good public health, which they must, why would we say any other sector of drivers should have less rights? The Taxi Workers Alliance, we never ever make those distinctions. We believe in solidarity, because that's what a union is supposed to fight for. We never ever pit drivers against each other. We work on issues for the rights of all drivers across the industry.
And what do you think about there's a lot of stories about drivers relieving themselves in the car. What do you think about that? Do you think that the apps give people a choice? It's basically to give you a choice. You relieve yourself on your pants or your skirt or whatever, and you risk sticking up your car, and then people complain about you, and then you get deactivated, or you gotta hold it. And the problem is with that is if you hold it, you could die,
Right.
or you could do the other route and relieve yourself in a cup. Do you think there should be real protections when it comes to that? Because everybody got health reasons.
I think it represents a broken system, a system that has failed the drivers, right?
Yeah.
Those are terrible choices. By the way, I think what the vast majority of drivers do is they end up sacrificing their own health, right?
Yeah.
By just waiting it out to be able to pull over and find that restroom. That's why these having more stands, it's unfortunate that the final version of the bill, it's like a 1-year pilot program. Obviously, we've already spoken with the mayor and city hall and expect to, be able to get way more restrooms,
Yeah.
And to make that more permanent. And as well as like relief stands, right? So you could park properly and then have a public restroom close to you. And so, yeah, should there be rules against these companies that punish them for forcing drivers into these working conditions? Absolutely.
And another thing, what do you think about this controversy? Like, what do you think about like there's certain people that like to divide you guys on purpose? I'm not saying names, but there are people like to divide you guys, like the IDG and TWA. I believe you guys should get along. You guys should be together.
But how could TWA and IDG get along when IDG is paid for by the companies?
Oh, that
is a fundamental conflict.
Yeah.
We represent the drivers and only the drivers' interests. So it's like trying to shake hands with the companies that you're rightly talking about regulating more, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's the companies or their agents who are lobbying for the interests of those companies, that's an interest, that's a conflict for us. We're not on the same side. They're on the other side, like what happened with the lockout fight. We were having protests of over 3,000 drivers marching from City Hall to Uber's headquarters. IDG had a barbecue where they invited the mayor and announced a phony deal, backroom fake deal between City Hall and the companies, which is actually an illegal act of collusion between Uber and Lyft, to coordinate these lockouts and then the gradual end supposedly of the lockouts. IDG stood there brokering that. There were no protests against it. They gave cover to the corruption of City Hall and to the exploitation of the companies. We cannot get along with that. I see the fight that Taxi Workers Alliance has to, against the greed and the exploitation of the companies, whether it's the companies directly or any agent that lobbies on behalf of those companies. Our union will proudly, strongly, and unequivocally stand against those interests and those forces.
And do you believe in do you think that with the unfair deactivations, I think it's gonna be in 3 months, right? When it goes through, right?
It was 180 days,
it's like 3 months.
No, 180, so 6 months.
6 months. That's 6 months. So do you think that the app's gonna find a way to keep on retaliating? Like when that comes law, do you think they're gonna try to litigate this, or we think it's gonna happen?
I think they may try to litigate it because that's been their usual practice. I think they're gonna be out of luck in the courts because this is a really strong bill and it's legally sound and it is so overdue and there's a real public interest need here.
Yeah. Do you believe? I know. I just want to talk about my last question. Do you believe that the city? We had a women's gender equity hearing with Amanda Faria, and she's the chair of that. Do you think that the app should be pushed? The app should be pushing, the TWA should be pushing more for like women-oriented drivers when it comes to women's rights in the city? Women-oriented drivers. So let's say you're female and you want a women-oriented driver, because there's an option thinking in the West Coast. Do you think that should be?
We've had members talk about that. I mean, Uber has tried to implement that, as far as I understand.
Do you think there should be like a law, like it should be women-oriented drivers?
Meaning that women drivers are matched up with female passengers?
Yeah, it should be the option in the city.
I don't necessarily think that should be a law. I think that if it's an option that the companies, provide, as far as I understand it, that's something that they've already started to do.
And
but I tell you, in terms of I think women's rights, right? What we need are higher pay, benefits on the job, retirement, shorter hours. many of the women drivers are single moms. They're caretakers. Many, male drivers are caretakers. To have to work overtime every day, 6 days of the week, is not sustainable. And those are important. Those are women's rights issues that really, I think, that almost every single woman driver would be at the forefront fighting for.
And do you believe? I know Zohran Madani has a plan for universal child care. Hochul guaranteed $2 billion. Madani won universal. Do you believe that the female driver should be beneficial to that too?
Yeah,
They should benefit.
Families, right? Whether it's whether the children are being raised by a single mom or two parents, or even a single dad. Yeah, this is a program to really take care of our children and to give some relief to working parents.
And I think one more thing. Since we have this, Zohran is pushed for fast free buses in the city, we have bus stops. I think we have bus lanes in certain areas. I think you know about in Brooklyn, Utica Avenue and Jamaica Avenue. They have these dollar cabs, $2 vans that they use the bus stops. They never harassed because they're minorities. Do you think that the taxi workers alliance, the taxi drivers, should be benefited from that too? Be able to drive on the bus lanes and park on bus lanes? Because that's a lot of parking right there, especially in the overnights.
Well, first of all, so a couple of things. First of all, drivers are legally allowed to pull over to drop off or pick up, but the rule is their rights are not upheld and they still get unfairly ticketed. We have to change that. In the 80s, yellow cabs were allowed to drive in the bus lanes, but the number of vehicles you had then compared to now, that is a massive difference. So I don't know if we would really be able to get the bus lane access, right, with passengers. However, there's a lot of turn restrictions that drivers, especially if you have a passenger, should not be subject to. But the other thing, so I think these are important traffic rights that we need to win. But the other thing is, I don't think that the commuter vans are subject to any less policing because they're mostly people of color. I think if anything, racism is real, and I think as people of color, drivers as a whole are subject to a lot of more policing and ticketing, higher fines, and a lot of discrimination at the hands of the public. So I don't think you should downplay the reality of racism.
Yeah, I'm not here downplay. And another thing is, do you think that taxi workers, taxi people, should have bulletproof vests? When they should be wearing bulletproof vests in the cars, when they doing the work.
No, I think there's more we need to do to make the city as a whole safer and to make drivers, work more safer.
And what do you think about the trip? Do you think they should bring back trip? Let's say you put the yellow light in the back of the car and you feel the drivers feel uncomfortable.
The trouble light?
Yeah, do you think that should be brought back, trip stops, like that?
The problem is, the trouble light that's still there, nobody recognizes it. Even police will drive past you. But why not have something that's connected to the app, right? Mm-hmm. Because majority of, or for yellow cabs, FHVs, you've got the phone, so through the app. For yellow cabs, they have the driver information monitor in the front seat. There should be a trouble light that can be connected through either of these mechanisms for the drivers.
That's but and the thing about do you think that this mayor should be pushing for more of that, in this administration? I know we have a new TLC commissioner, we have a DWCP commissioner. Do you think they should be pushing for more crackdowns on the apps when they mess up like that, where they refuse to abide by certain things, especially when it comes to standing up more for the driver more than the passenger?
Yeah, that's what our bill on deactivations is about. That's why we have to fight for higher pay, especially prevailing wage pay, so drivers are really compensated for their hours and expenses and the dangers of this job. But also, I think what you're getting at is putting the responsibility, right now, for example, on safety. like for employees, right? Most sectors, you can file the Occupational Safety and Health Administration at the federal level. They oversee that corporations, that industries are following safety standards. So there's someone to hold accountable. Because these companies misclassify drivers as independent contractors, right? And on the yellow cab side, they've been found to be independent contractors. There's no corporate entity, the ones that with the deep pockets, to hold responsible for the safety of the drivers, to provide the tools for safety. And yes, these are things under our new administration that I think we can finally start to plan out and really have a lot of optimism that we would be able to win.
And do you think that there should be a fight with you guys and LDU to where that they're gonna prevent the outsourcing of the work? Because I believe, this is my belief, with this bill's going to pass, I know one got passed already, Intro 1332, what LDU had, yours going to be passed tomorrow in a landslide. Do you think that the apps should not be outsourcing the work to third-party companies so they could get rid of the liability and put the liability on the companies, which is going to completely help them more with union busting or attempted union busting?
Do you mean in terms of the deactivation work?
Yeah, do you think they might outsource the jobs going forward?
I mean, what the bill requires is that the companies have to engage in I believe the term is fair and objective investigation, or maybe thorough and objective investigation. And so, I mean, the law is going to be clear on that. What resources the companies use, the law isn't going to dictate that, and that's not really my concern. My concern is that they do it, that they follow the law to make sure that the drivers, that if there's a complaint, that before they deactivate a driver, they have really properly, fairly, objectively, no discrimination, no retaliation, no kind of point, picking on any individual driver, that they do a fair investigation before they take that action.
What do you think about the apps going to find? I think their favorite way of retaliating is called route fraud. You heard of that, route fraud or route manipulation?
Right. But this is the thing. Many times a passenger will say, no, I want you to go in X direction, right? And many, many times the companies are charging the passenger far more than, let's say whatever the rates might be based on that route. And so I think it's really arbitrary. I don't trust the company's judgment. I think it's an arbitrary reason to fire drivers because they have overhired, so then they overfire.
Yeah.
It's the business decision here is how to kind of balance out the oversaturation that they themselves are responsible for. And that's why this bill is important, because this cannot be the solution.
And so think about what this is. We have route fraud, and then we have the ratings. I know a lot of drivers complain on your platforms, on your mainly Facebook, about the ratings. We think about that. You think that the app, that should be something where they should stop deactivating because of rating level? I understand it's a 3 or 2, but they're deactivating drivers on a 4.75 rating. They get a 4.
Yeah, the ratings have not. If you have a high rating, it does not benefit you when the company wants to deactivate you. If you have a low rating, they don't really inform you why or help train you to overcome. So here's the thing: Intro 276, which we fought for, is requires that the companies use progressive discipline, which means a history of notices and trainings. Secondly, they have to look at the totality of your driving record. Right now, it's so selective. You have a good record, right, in terms of ratings or even DMV, TLC. You have a good record. Again, it doesn't favor you. They ignore it. If you have something bad on your record, then, they focus on that. So under this bill, they will have to look at the totality of your record, and and they will have to give you notices and trainings along the way.
Do you think that the apps will not be doing that at all? I don't think they're gonna be doing that. They're just going to just keep on deactivating. Say, oh, we did this, and
They're going to be subject to fines, lawsuits. I don't think this is a strong law. It is the most comprehensive protections for gig workers across this country on deactivations. LDU put out a statement saying 276 is the most comprehensive protections for gig workers in the country.
That's a yeah, and I understand, but do you think that these apps are going to find a way to move the goalposts more
Sure,
on your
will
drive?
they try to game the rules? Sure, but that's why drivers have to keep building the union. That's why it's good that we have a city hall right now that has the backs of the drivers, a DCWP that is fully committed to this bill, and a city council, particularly a sponsor who has been so focused and driven to get us to this point of a victory. So we've got a lot of power. Yeah, sure. Do the apps try to game? Sure, but we can respond to that.
And I think another thing is, what do you think about you think that the apps are going to find a way to I like to say sell to other companies, try to find a way to sell if you think would it be to grow if, let's say, Uber sells the each proportion to Uber sells their proportion to Amazon, or Lyft sells to Amazon. Well, Amazon's a powerful company. Let's say they go that route to sell to Amazon to really end it, because nobody's gonna go against Amazon. Amazon most.
No, the law will be the law, Christopher.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you can look at it a different way. Maybe if they sold it to Amazon right now and Amazon came in, would it have been harder for us to win the bill? Maybe. I still think we would win.
Yeah.
I think we could beat them. But the point is, the law will already be in existence.
Yeah.
And if the companies use a third-party vendor like they do on the Yellow Cab side through Curb and Arrow, the drivers will still be protected. They're still covered under the law.
Yeah. I think that's it. I lost on my. I think that's the final question. But thank you for your interview. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I know you gotta go. Thank you. Take care. Right. Hey, no problem. Anytime.